G'day, Dustin. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today. Built, Trusted, Chosen. And we're all about construction and trades industry. And it's funny to know that next door there, it's a construction site. So it's a whole heap of noise. Hopefully that doesn't come across in the podcast, but I'll try to remain undistracted, but we'll see how we go. So Dustin, if you'd like to just introduce yourself real quick, who you are, what you do, how you serve the world.
Totally. Yeah, I'm a fractional CFO. I specifically serve construction companies. My background, my experience is with subcontractors and general contractors, mainly in the residential field. I work with companies doing from $3 million in annual revenue all the way up to about 30 million. And we work together to better their cash flow, to increase profitability, help the business owner really find the freedom that they're looking for in their lives and in their business. That's kind of my big thing.
Yeah, I can imagine once you're getting into that bracket, there's a whole bunch of headaches that cap your capacity to grow further. So, and to build something that's truly of an abundant sort of business. What do you think some of those key core areas are that keep people trapped and limited in their growth?
That's a really good question. And for me, I think it is, these guys are really good at their craft, right? They are good at building houses or laying tile or pouring concrete or carpentry, whatever it is. They're really good at that. And that's why they started their business, right? Because they knew that they could go do that and they could do it well. Now, we all know that there's so much more that is involved with running a business, especially a successful one. And so at the beginning stages, they're doing everything. They're doing the work. They're trying to run the books or figure out what that even means. They're trying to manage the bank accounts and payroll and all this stuff. And so typically what happens is they get caught up handling everything, and they have a really hard time putting systems in place to delegate those things so that they can just focus on growing the business.
Yeah. And I'm sure the numbers catch a lot of construction companies out. There can be a huge outlay of obviously materials and so on. And if you don't know your numbers all that well, you can be sunk before you even finish a project. Do you see that a little bit?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's easy to know your numbers when you have like 2 projects going on, right? You can keep track of it on the back of your hand, but when you start to grow and you have more people, more projects involved, you just can't do that anymore. And so you lose sight, you lose track of what you're actually spending and what you're making.
Yeah. And so a horror story, a friend of mine a few years ago, he had a solar company and he was doing mainly residential, and that was going great, making a lot of money. There was government grants for solar, obviously, as the green energy was really getting pushed hard at that time, as it still is, but the solar panels were a big deal and he was making a killing. So he got this opportunity to do a commercial job, and it was massive. I don't know how he got the opportunity, but he won the project, and it destroyed his business because he didn't have his numbers in line, and he didn't get the cash flow right, because all the grant money that was coming from the government or whatever was delayed. So he had a massive outlay of the materials, and then he hadn't put finance in place. He hadn't got anything in place. So he sunk. The business, unfortunately, collapsed as a consequence of winning what he dreamed of, a massive job, but just not having the right guidance. I'm sure you've seen those sorts of scenarios. That's obviously an extreme scenario.
Yeah,
those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what I hate the most. Like that's a big piece of why I do what I do, because you especially like what you're talking about, you work with a bigger contractor, right? That's got these really strict contracts, but these guys aren't reading them or know what they mean, and it'll go in there and it's going to say, hey, you're going to get paid in 60 days after the work's done, which means they've got to have enough cash or financing to float all the costs that it takes to get the job done. Yeah. And that's just so hard. Like, you've got jobs that cost hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and you're having to float those expenses for months.
Yeah. It's a huge challenge when the costs can be significant. How do you recommend owners of these businesses, as you mentioned, that founder-led businesses, so they start with a great skill set in doing the service that they offer and deliver. They're really great at what they do, but how much of a handle do they need on the numbers themselves, and how much can they delegate to an outsourced CFO or someone else? What do you think of that?
I think it kind of depends on how big their business is, when they're trying to decide that. But for me, they need to understand the overall picture at least. Is my business profitable? Do we have enough cash in the bank to sustain a couple of months of drought or big projects like what we're talking about? That's the main thing. You can delegate things to a bookkeeper who's going to make sure all the data is being tracked, but that person's not going to have usually not going to have a great understanding of the big picture. And so, in order to have that freedom that we're talking about, like, they've got to be able to understand that.
Yeah, 100%. So I suppose what you're saying with the bookkeeping, the compliance aspect, that's one skill set, and that's not what will propel you forward for growth. So that's past looking where you want to be, future projecting, and these things you need a high level of understanding. Do you think that's a big? Do people lean too much on, say, a bookkeeper who's just doing the data entry style of work, thinking that things are solved in that piece of the puzzle, which is a needed service, and I'm not knocking those people, but
totally.
Putting too much emphasis on believing that they're capable of the future projections?
Totally. Yeah, I actually see it all the time where business owners have the assumption that bookkeepers handle it all, and they do. Like, that is the foundation. You can't really do the forward-looking work without having the numbers from the past. So super important, but that's their lane, right? They focus on that. And I see it all the time where, like, oh, my bookkeeper is paying attention. They know, they're looking out in the future. And I'm just like, hey, that's not really what they're there for.
Yeah, 100%. And so you mentioned the bracket that you like to work with. I think it was 3 million to 30 million. Is that kind of what you mentioned before?
Yep.
I speak to a lot of people, and it feels as though they get to roughly that 2 to 3 million mark, and they find it hard to break through that point. It feels, I talk to a lot of people, and it seems like there's this $1 million roadblock, and once they break through, they quickly get to the 3 million. I don't know what's causing that, but then it sounds as though there's this whole new $3 million to $30 million sweet spot. What do you think those core roadblocks are, say, at the 1 million and then the 3 million? Does that vary? Is there consistency in what businesses experience?
I think there's some consistency. Yeah. What I've seen a lot of is a lack of clarity around who's doing what. So roles and responsibilities is a big piece. Like, when you get to that $1 million mark and the owner's just doing everything himself, doing most of the work, and he might have one or two guys underneath him doing some things, but they're looking at hiring maybe an office manager or an admin assistant to take over some tasks. And so I think clarity on roles and responsibilities is a big piece there, as well as, like, software, or the right system to manage your leads coming in, and the project management and all of that. So it's like, kind of like we were talking about earlier, you can manage stuff. You can manage some work from your phone or a piece of paper, right? You can get some stuff done, but the second you add people into the mix, that just doesn't work.
Yeah. I suppose all of us, when we're starting out, we find it hard to delegate tasks where we feel as though we're the only one who really knows the thing. So that learning how to build out a team. What would you say are the core roles that any business in the $3 million to $30 million bracket trying to push into that bracket? what are the key roles you should be looking at hiring in first, would you say?
Yeah. You need a bookkeeper, be it in office or outsourced, doesn't really matter, but you need a bookkeeper to make sure that the data is in order. You need, in my mind, in construction, some sort of superintendent or project manager, depending on what area of construction you're in, so that the owner doesn't have to be doing all of the project management, right? Running all of the jobs. And you need someone in the higher finance seat that can take the information that the bookkeeper provides and say, okay, business owner, if your goals are to 2x or 10x or whatever they are, or sell in 5 years, these are the things we got to do. These are the systems we got to put in place in order to get there. Those are like the three big ones for me. And then usually there's also some sort of executive assistant or administrative assistant handling emails and client communication and things like that, because that really is a big one that weighs down business owners that I see.
Yeah, it can be chaotic without that person helping you on the day-to-day, whatever those tasks are. No, that's really important. So moving into the trusted piece, so we go through the build and how you're building things out, and obviously putting these people in place is a huge part of building a successful company that's got the capacity to grow. But the trust piece in any transition, so if a company's transitioning into something bigger, and the roles are changing and the dynamics are changing, how do you manage that, the trust, so everyone feels on board through that process?
Trust is such a hard one. You're worried about your customers, right? And you want them to continue to feel the same trust that they have in you with your employees. Now, you have to know that they're never going to do things the exact same way that you do, right? They're not the same person. They have a different personality. And so that's a really big piece of it, is just knowing that going into it, that as you're trying to delegate, mistakes are going to be made. They're not going to handle challenges and obstacles the exact same way that you do. And that's okay. That is part of growing a business and growing as a business owner.
Yeah, there's always going to be little hiccups. You don't know what you don't know, and as you make movement creates speed wobbles sometimes. So getting those things ironed out as you make progress, that's part of the key challenge. And even with businesses that are not looking to grow tremendously, just the way tech is changing so fast, that's hugely disruptive to a lot of businesses, and AI and systems and processes. There's always a better system on the horizon. Do you feel as though construction businesses are on top of building out the right systems, or do they kind of do it in a haphazard way?
It's pretty dependent on who is at the top of it. You get some people that start a business later in life that have had a ton of experience, and they like doing things the way that they've done it for the last 20 or 30 years. Yeah. But then on the flip side, you have business owners that started their business when they were 25 and don't have all that experience, and are like, hey, I'm willing to figure out what the right system is early on, so that we can have that in place going forward. And so I feel like there really is two different sides to it. I can't say that either one is necessarily right or wrong. But yeah, and without having the right people, it's hard to have the right systems. You could have great technology all day long, but if you don't have the right people to help you run it, then it's kind of a waste.
Yeah, 100%. There was a project a while ago that we built out for a client, and it had their CRM and all sorts of stuff in there. But the sales team just weren't on board with it, so they wanted to keep going with the old tech. So And I suppose they didn't trust. It probably was a few things internally for that company. They didn't really trust the new system, or they weren't really involved in the decision making process. That's always a challenge if there's a core function that a certain portion of your team need to operate in, and you haven't involved them in the decision making. That's probably going to erode trust, and they're not going to really comply. So yeah, they spent a fortune on some other things external to what I was doing. I was just doing the website, and they were looking after this new software, but the software never got implemented. So these challenges of building a team and building the trust in the new way of doing things. What would you say? Is it when you're deciding upon these processes? I guess it's you don't know what you don't know. So when creating the structures and systems and processes, how much do people lean upon expert, third party expertise, or what's the right way of dealing with that?
That's a great question. I think that I don't think there's too much reliance on an expert. And by that, I mean, if I can put a percentage to it, I would almost say 25% expert and 75% on the people that are going to be using it.
Yeah.
For example, like what I do, I don't go into people's businesses and tell them what to do, right? I'm not saying you should go do this, this, and this, hire this person, blah, 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 and all is going to be well. It's more of, we have these conversations that open people's eyes, and they start to realize themselves like, oh, I think we should do this. Yeah. And then together we're thinking that through, right? Together we're running the numbers and saying, okay, you can afford this, but you can't afford that, or whatever it looks like. And so I think the expert in this case, when it comes to implementing a new system or process, is kind of the same. Like, hey, this is maybe what it could look like, but you tell me, like, in your business, how would that work with your employees and the positions that you have filled?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The leaning upon experts is great, but it needs to apply to the nuance and specifics of any company and the individuals involved. But I suppose there's often blind spots, and that's the beauty of niching like you have. You work purely with the construction industries, which I do as well, trades and construction. And so you just pick up so much from the industry, and what's worked for a bunch of other companies is likely to work for the next company. So that trial and error kind of process can be shortcut if you just lean upon and get some guidance. Obviously, you need to run it past your own business in your own way of doing things, but leaning upon someone who's done it before can be a really big advantage. Hiring someone who's smarter than you, I think.
Yes. Yes, that's probably key number one, is hire a bunch of people that are smarter than you are. So they can help you get things done.
Yeah, I've found that myself. Just when I hire people who are better at their function than me in that function, it means that I'm not going to micromanage them, because that's a temptation of mine, because I can do a bunch of stuff, is to get in the weeds and get bogged down, because I feel as though they're not quite up to the standard in which I would like them to do. But if I hire better than me, well, then that's so much easier to delegate and say, right, you run with this aspect of business and do the thing. I need to stay on top of it and understand it and all that stuff and make the key decisions. But if you can lean upon people for certain functions, that's a real way of leadership and building out something significant. You would see this a fair bit in construction?
Yes. A lot of subcontractors not even just subcontractors, but general contractors too. But one of the key hires to growing any trade business is an estimator. And I think when you get to that $2, $3, $4 million range, usually the owner is the estimator for a while, right? They're doing sales and estimating. They're shaking people's hands. They're looking at plans and they're putting numbers on paper and sending it out. And that works great. This is probably one of the bottlenecks I should have brought up earlier, but that is also like one of the hardest hires to make, because they are so like, they're taking your baby, right? They're taking your customers, they're doing the sales, but they're also unlocking so much opportunity for the business owner to go out and do more. And so, you know, along the lines of trust and process and who to hire, like the estimator is such a crucial one for being able to level up. And
I suppose if you mess that stuff up, the cost is significant. So that
it is.
So much is reliant on that, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's sales is pretty much the lifeblood of the company, right? Without it, you have nothing. And so making sure you have the right person there who's bought into the vision and who's bought into the systems is crucial.
Yeah, and things can often go wrong in construction. So building in a process so you're not caught out if the unexpected occurs. I know a guy here in my local town, Geelong, his building company is responsible for a renovation of a heritage listed building, a church. And I just saw in the newspaper the other day, it's got some significant mold issues. And so all of a sudden no one can be on site because this particular mold is extremely dangerous to people. So, you know, these kind of challenges always pop up as well. And how do you cope with those sorts of things where the unexpected occurs and all of a sudden the thing can't roll out as you would expect?
Man, I think if your business is healthy, as in you've got 3 to 6 months of cash in the bank, then you'll be okay. You can kind of weather those storms. Now, if your business is not, you know, it's not stable, you don't have the right people, you don't have enough money in the bank, if you're completely broke and you run into an issue like that on a big project, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt really bad. And so I think that just adds to the kind of just the weight, the importance there of making sure that the business is performing how it should be financially. Because then you can get through it pretty much no matter what it is. You know, if one of your key employees gets hurt, you know, and or there's a big lawsuit or anything like that will just slow you down, you've got to be able to make it through financially. It can be challenging, and I suppose that's what leads to oftentimes that feast and famine kind of scenario, where if you're going after really massive jobs and then all of a sudden that job can't be done because there's a roadblock, then all your team is twiddling their thumbs and it's just costing you a bunch of money. Getting these things figured out so you've got contingencies in place. Is that part of the role of a CFO as well, would you say, figuring out how to manage the unexpected and dealing with issues? Yeah, it definitely is from the financial aspect. Mean, even operationally as well, I tend to dive into that a little bit also, but as I was saying before, you know, for example, I've got a client right now that they are in growth mode. They're trying to break through that ceiling too. And they signed a big contract with a pretty well-known large general contractor here in my area. And, you know, everything was great, right? everything was great until they're 3 weeks in, they're paying so much in labor costs, and then they realize, oh no, we're not going to get paid until like 60 to 90 days from now. And I'm looking at their bank account and I'm like, hey guys, we didn't plan this out, right? For me, if we had had the conversation beforehand as we should have, it would have been a no-go. We would have not done that project at that time because of the financial position of the business. And so there's a lot of it's like that. It's just seeing things before they happen and saying, hey, that's so much risk involved here that we're probably not going to go down that road yet until we're in a better spot where we can take the risk.
Yeah. And so in those scenarios, if people do bite something off like that and they find they haven't got the money in the bank to deal with it right then, is that considered insolvent, or because the cash is coming through eventually, how does that all play out? Or I suppose it varies from nation to nation what the insolvency laws are and so on, but it's obviously not a position you want to be in, but how does that play out, do you think?
Usually usually we find some source of funding, be it the owners coming in and contributing capital to the business, or if they have a line of credit already that's just sitting there that they can pull funds from temporarily to float that project, we'll do that. Or if it's, really, really bad case, they can bring on another partner that says, hey, I believe in this. Here's some cash so that you can float this project and get back to where you were before. So there's options. Now, I don't like any of them, right? And so the biggest thing for me is the forecasting, plugging in scenarios and saying, hey, if you do this, you run out of money in 45 days or 60 days, or on the flip side, if you do this, hey, it looks really, really good for you. Let's do it. So
yeah. It's the growing pains. It's like a teenager when they hit that growth cycle where they're growing really fast and all their bones are aching and they're sore, stiff and sore. But we know it's just for a season, and if they'll get through it and be better for it, fully grown and developed. It feels like that to me. Sometimes in challenging times, it's just that. It's just trying to find a way to get to that next level and possibly making better decisions next time around.
Yeah.
You have made some horrible choices. So with the whole industry getting chosen, so we've spoken about trust, building trust, but to be chosen from a marketing standpoint more than anything else, how much does all of this play into the marketing piece and communicating to the world what you're about and the business and the if you've got solid systems and foundations, you're a secure business, and you're not going to go out of business and leave people in the lurch halfway through projects, which we've seen that a bit in Australia, unfortunately. Of recent times with the building materials going up through the roof and fixed costs, sinking. Some businesses were able to get through it, just talking about residential builds mostly, but others, left people in the lurch halfway through. You can imagine someone's building their dream home and then halfway through the builder's not there anymore, and probably the building is pretty a few corners cut as well, whatever has been done. So other builders are reluctant to take them on. So getting chosen, I suppose, building trust and getting chosen, how do you deal with that kind of aspect?
Yeah. For me, with being chosen, I think about it from two different aspects. One is the customers that you serve, and the other side is also the employees that you work with, right? You need both of them. You're not going to have customers if you don't have the right people to help you run your business, and you're not going to have the employees if you don't have the customers. And so with being chosen when it comes to being financially stable and healthy, I think that, like, this goes back in a circle. That allows them to trust you, right? And if they trust you, they're going to choose you.
Yeah.
And that might sound cliche, but that is just what it is. You'll see larger home builders, maybe they're public home builders that, they're on social media, they're on the news with all the problems they're facing, right? And then that makes people question, oh man, do I really want to do this? And then you see other home builders on the same pages, same social media channels and all that, with testimonials of their previous clients going, hey, we had an amazing experience. We really trust them. We know that they have our backs. We know that we love their systems, right? Like, most of the time the customer is involved in that system, as in even just the software. We get to communicate with them through this software. We get to see our project progress. We get to be involved in the process. We know that they do a good job. We know that if something goes wrong in the market, that our house is going to be protected still.
Yeah.
And you don't want to mess with someone's house, right?
Yeah. It's their dream home.
It's their dream home. It's where they spend 90% of their time. You can't mess with that.
Yeah. It's so true. And so word of mouth is so strong in the trades construction industry. I mean, everyone in a region will know who the good players are and the bad players and people who are doing dodgy things. Everyone talks. So you can try and market your business and say all the most positive things, but if your reputation is damaged in your industry, just everything is harder. It's like trying to swim with lead around your ankles. It's we do websites and SEO, and so that's marketing, digital marketing. And sometimes companies will come to us and I just know their reputation is not what it should be. It's always a difficult challenge because we can do the most wonderful marketing, but a little guy who does no marketing, he's probably going to outperform them online, even because people are searching them out and trying to find them and want to work with them and so on. So it just makes things difficult if you don't get the business foundations in place. You can do all the marketing in the world, but probably won't work. So that's all about getting chosen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, same thing with we could put all the right systems in place, right? We could have all the cash in the world, but if they can't be trusted, if their reputation is poor, some people got burned by them. None of it really means anything.
Yeah, that's it. You got to build a solid business, solid foundations, build a great team, build a great reputation. It's hard, and building and there's growing pains, but to get people in your corner that can support you through that process. How do people get engaged with you, Dustin?
I'm on social media channels. I'm on LinkedIn. I also have a website, ravencfo.com. That's probably the best way for people to reach me. Through there, we can schedule one-on-one meetings. The best thing that I can offer is my time, and I really like meeting new people, talking to new people, and offering value, even without anything formal in place. So ravencfo.com is where people can contact me.
Perfect. And is there a region that you specifically work in, or can it be anyone? Or
I work right now in the United States only, but anyone in the States.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds really good. I'll put all the links in the show notes as well. This has been a fantastic conversation, Dustin. Thanks so much for your time.
Likewise. Yeah, it's been great talking here, Wes, and hopefully we can help some people out.
Great. Thanks, Dustin.